Devon Conway is not an opening bat. He has done it 19 times before today. That is not a lot of times to open before having to do so in your first ever test, also at Lord's. Conway is a number 3 really, but he's spent a lot of time batting at 4 and 5. However, he's waited 10 years to play a test, so he'll clearly take the spot, no matter where it's offered to him. But in those 19 innings, he's not really done that well. He's averaged 25, and in any other regular spot, he's well over 35. I mean, he is a middle order player, albeit one with decent skill against a new ball. Now he's having to go up a level and try a position he's not used to or good at. His last first-class knock opening and batting before this was in 2018, and the time before that, 2014, and the one before that, 2011. Meaning that in the last 9 years he's opened twice in first-class cricket to warm up for this test match. Put it this way, at lunch, Conway was 43 not out. That was his 4th highest score opening in a first-class match. Here are all these innings, and as you can see, it's just not something he's done much or well. This was his 3rd time passing a first-class 50 in the position. And yet he did so well that after tea, England ended up with a leg slip. I love the leg slip position, but quite often for a seamer, it's a sign that you've kind of given up on everything. England's main plan was coming around the wicket to him. He didn't look as good when the bowlers came around the wicket to him. He was sort of a bit more eager to get off strike, and England obviously bowled around the wicket to him a lot. So that's something they knew beforehand. He's a 29-year-old player who's played across 2 first-class systems and a lot of league cricket. There's a fair chance that England had a bit of information on him. And just on that, this is what Freddie Wild tweeted before this test. The minute I saw this tweet, it gave me flashbacks to working for teams. The 2 worst things for an analyst are not having any information on a player or having no real idea who will be in the team. In this case, it means you don't really know how much you need to do on a particular cricketer, which leads to half-assed analysis at times. But also, the more players you mention to your captain and bowlers, the more confusion and less information actually gets through. For Conway, they had 24 hours to ensure that they knew what their plan was to him, even if they might have been wrong. And that 24 hours means a lot to a player like Conway, who is not a great professional opener. And I think it goes deeper than this as well. As good as Conway has been in this innings, so far in his career, his numbers suggest that he struggled when playing at a slightly higher level. Playing for Gauteng and Wellington, he was simply amazing. But those are slightly lower levels of first-class cricket. Gauteng isn't a franchise team. And while the Plunket Shield is obviously a decent competition, it's not as strong as franchise cricket in South Africa. And when he played in that level of cricket, he wasn't that good. Now, there's a few things to note here. He played for 2 teams over a couple of different years, but he never really had a long run at franchise cricket. And it's quite clear from watching him play today, and for everything he's done with Wellington, that he is a quality player. But again, he's not massively experienced and he hasn't played at the top level. And he's also not an expert on English conditions. He has played a lot of league cricket, but that is certainly different than first-class cricket. So here you have a 29-year-old player who's had to leave his homeland to build a new career, who comes with the damage of being a late bloomer, playing in a position he's not used to, and making his debut against Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson when he's probably not yet sure of himself. So in a way, New Zealand kind of set him up to fail here. And this is why I think that matters for New Zealand. Players of Conway's ability don't just arrive in their system that often. And many incredible South African players have moved over to New Zealand and struggled to make it work. Let me tell you about one of my favourite players. Years ago I was obsessed with the international cricket captain game on my phone. And I played as Victoria and you could bring in one overseas player. I always chose Oebus Pienaar, a left-arm fast bowler from South Africa who could really bat. So of course one day I looked him up because I couldn't believe that his stats on the game were actually real because they were disgustingly good. Now it turns out the game was slightly wrong. He wasn't left arm fast, he was medium fast. But that alone is quite handy as so few medium paces are actually southpaws. But his bowling average and his batting average were as good as the game suggests. They were incredible. This is a ridiculous record. And this is playing first class cricket in South Africa, mostly at the level that Conway bossed. Pienaar spent 2 years in New Zealand and couldn't make it to first class cricket there. There's a lot of reasons why players fail. There's the money thing, visas, being away from your support bubble. If you're a South African player, you're going up against young New Zealand players who are already in the system, they already understand what's going on, they're used to the conditions. Pienaar was an incredible talent and he didn't make it. Conway did. As far as homegrown players, we know that New Zealand probably overproduced their local talent, and they can only hope that that continues. But either way, they can't afford for a player of Conway's obvious natural talent not to perform. The bigger countries can misuse their players and still be okay. New Zealand have to be so careful. But if the way that New Zealand treat Conway is important for them, it obviously means so much more to the man himself. This is his career, and realistically his life. He has done everything he can to get right here, and then when he does, it's in a job he's no good at, in foreign conditions, against two of the highest wicket takers of all time. So with all of that, think about this innings. It's a remarkable knock. It's obvious that the pitch was friendly for batting, and England perhaps don't know as much about him as they'd like, and a frontline off-spinner might have been handy. But those are the caveats. Let's just think about what happened here. He made 100 with so many historical things against him. This may end up being the best innings of his Test career, or perhaps the beginning of a lovely little late blooming career. But it doesn't matter. Devon Conway has produced something so brilliant and unlikely here against pretty much all the odds that were stacked up against him. Devon Conway was not an opening bat. Until now.